Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid is back for Gameweek 35. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. It's time to get some transfer tips for the new game week and for the rest of the season using data and fixtures to make those decisions. Before we get going, if you haven't checked out the latest episode of Stick to FPL for Gameweek 35, that is uploaded now on the Stick to FPL channels on YouTube, on Spotify, or on Apple Podcasts. Go check it out using the link in the description if you want some long-form content and deep discussion with transfers and captains being the big topics of the week. Go check it out. But for today's video, we will be splitting it into two parts. The first part, we will be having a look at those players you may already have in your squads and which players you should keep and which ones you should sell. After that, we'll be having a look at the players to buy and perhaps which players to avoid as well. Players will be tier listed with the best players on top and the worst ones towards the bottom. And we're going to be starting off, as always, with the forwards that you may already have in your squad ahead of Game Week 35. And today, guys, we have, of course, again, got the possible double and blank game weeks on screen for you guys in Game Week 36 and Game Week 37. However, I do want to make a note here. It is looking less and less likely that we will get a double and blank game week in Game Week 36 and 37. There's a good chance there is no doubles and no blanks for the rest of the season. Now, we discussed it on yesterday's video, but I'm expecting an official announcement before the deadline, so stay tuned for that and don't rush your transfers if you don't need to, because it could be that some real key information will appear before us before that deadline this week. So anyway, looking at the forwards, we see Marmoush at the top of this list. A possible double game week, of course, but Wolves at home isn't such a bad fixture, even though Wolves have been in pretty good form recently. Their underlying numbers suggest that they still can be got at. They still are conceding some chances, and even though they have been getting a lot of good results recently, it should be noted they have had some very good fixtures. Man City, on the other hand, are in great form right now, back to their old selves, and Marmoush really leading the line, looking really good at the moment. 24 shots and 5 big chances puts him in the highest bracket of those shooting players in the Premier League over the past 6 game weeks, and he's even making a few key passes here. 7 key passes, 3.79 XG over 6 game weeks. This is looking really good right now, and even if there is no double game week, Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth and Fulham, that's not such a bad 4 games to finish off this season. No news on Haaland back quite yet, but even if he is, you imagine Marmoush will still be in contention to start. After that, we have Yoane Wissa. Definitely would be looking to keep him ahead of this Manchester United fixture. We've got Ipswich and Fulham at home after that as well. And Wissa is another one of those strikers in pretty good form right now with the same amount of goals as Marmoush, but with slightly worse underlying numbers. So he is performing a little bit overperforming right now, but 5 big chances is no joke. He's also managed to get a couple of assists from his 6 key passes. Alexander Isak is also going to be a keep against Brighton. Brighton, interestingly, have conceded 2 or more goals in each of their last 6 games in the Premier League. So this is a team actually that is struggling a little bit defensively at the moment. But even though we can't call this a great fixture necessarily, it's certainly a trend that they can be got at. Now, Isak is not in the best form right now. He's not in his best moment, and that's kind of proven by him underperforming on his expected numbers right now, but still, I think it could be worth keeping him for 1 more game week before looking to move him on to some other forwards. In particular, there is one player who could be a really nice pickup from Game Week 36 onwards, who we will have a look at in 1 moment. Or actually, there's maybe 2. And those 2, I suppose, are in the monitor section. So wouldn't be really looking to sell these players. I would look to keep them if at all possible. I think it's more important to keep Marmoush, Wissa and Isak, but Wood and Cunha are still great players for your team. And actually, speaking of switching Isak out later, it could be that Isak to Wood or Cunha could work really nice to try and capitalise on the best fixtures from Game Week 36 onwards, where Newcastle look a bit weaker for fixtures with Chelsea, Arsenal and Everton. And the likes of Wood will play Leicester, West Ham and then Chelsea again at home for the final day of the season. Cunha will face Crystal Palace and Brentford in the final 3 games of the season. So you get to avoid that Manchester City away fixture for Cunha. Like I did mention, Man City are looking a lot better at the moment. So even though Cunha has been in great form, I'm not necessarily sure he is an absolute must keep, but I would definitely try to do so if possible. Mateta is another player in the monitor section. Don't think he is a must keep, but certainly not a priority sell either. And Evan Nilsson is the final player in the monitor. And the reason we're monitoring him is because it could be that his red card that is has him suspended for 3 games could be overturned by the end of the week. Bournemouth have appealed this red card, so it could be Evan Nilsson is fine to keep. However, even if he is available, the next fixture is against Arsenal, Aston Villa and Man City in 36 and 37. Is it good enough? Can you bench him? Can you keep him for that Leicester fixture in the final game of the season? Or maybe is he worth playing against Aston Villa at home in game week 36 as well? I guess that remains to be seen. Of course, there is that chance of doubles as well, but I do think it is a small chance of doubles for any of these players at this point. Strand Larsen, I think I would be looking to sell. I mean, he has been in pretty good form recently, but it seems that he is better when Cunha is not available. And Cunha is very much available right now. Very greedy player, Cunha, which makes him perfect for FPL, but he does damage the FPL assets around him, including the likes of Strand Larsen. Man City away is probably a good hopping off point for him as well, though I would wait until the end of the week just to verify that there is going to be no double game week for Wolves. Welbeck is also going to be a sell with some tough fixtures coming up. Newcastle, Wolves, both teams in great form right now, and Liverpool at home after that. It's not a great run of the next 3, and there's going to be some big opportunities elsewhere. And Raul Jimenez, pretty weak fixtures generally. Really poor underlying numbers here for Raul Jimenez as well. Makes him a pretty obvious sell, I think, and we will be looking to replace these kind of players. Into midfield, and Harvey Barnes has the same outcome really as an Isak. Barnes, Murphy, when we go into this Brighton game, a team that is conceding goals right now, it makes a lot of sense to just hold on to your Newcastle players for one more week before deciding what to do with them. Of course, Barnes is putting up some phenomenal numbers here. 19 shots, 5 big chances, and 2.8 XG, as well as 8 key passes. This is exactly what we're looking for in a cheap FPL asset. So if you do have him in your squad, he's definitely not a player I would be looking to remove. Luis Diaz is a really interesting one because the fixtures are not great for Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, have now won the Premier League title as well, so you do wonder if they will take their foot off the gas just a little bit. But in general, I still think they will be playing fairly well since they are the best team in the Premier League. And Luis Diaz has been in great form. It's very rare that he doesn't return in a game. So maybe the difficult fixtures in this slight downturn in motivation may impact that a little bit, but it doesn't make too much sense to sell an in-form player, even if the fixtures aren't great. Now, interestingly, on this Chelsea away fixture, I know a lot of people are down on Chelsea, but Chelsea are actually putting up some of the best underlying defensive numbers in the Premier League at the moment, and whilst they're not convincing anyone with their performances, Chelsea aren't getting battered each week. They are keeping the scorelines pretty low, so I don't think this is a huge opportunity for Liverpool players necessarily. So I do just want to note that the next 2 game weeks are going to be hard for Luis Diaz. However, is because of that form. Generally, you keep players who are in good form. You forget about the fixtures. With attackers, form over fixture is a very, very popular kind of strategy when you're looking at your FPL picks. And Bruno Fernandes is also in the keep category. We've got Brentford and West Ham in the next 2, which I think are good enough for fixtures for him. He's been doing obviously very well for Manchester United whenever he's been playing. An assist in game week 34 continues his good form. And you do have to wonder whether a penalty, a free kick might find its way to the back of the net for Bruno next. Hopefully he can pick up that form that he carried from last game week into future game weeks. Mo Salah, I'm going to controversially put in the monitor section, though he is very high on the monitor list. So we should probably note at this point, if you are doing really well in FPL this season, if you are happy with your rank, if you're winning your mini league, you're not going to sell Mo Salah. That would be a really, really silly thing to do. However, if you are chasing a little bit, you want to try and do something different, I think it is pretty obvious that Salah is not in the best form right now, and there are other midfielders that will probably outscore him into future game weeks. I mean, looking at the past 6 game weeks, many midfielders have outscored Salah, and particularly if you're not planning on captaining him for the rest of the season against the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton and Crystal Palace, I think actually there is some possibility to sell him if you do want to play the game a little bit differently in the final 4 game weeks of the season. I think selling him could be a interesting risk to take. Let's put it that way. However, for the majority of people, he is going to be a keep, which is why he is so high on the monitor section. I don't think he's a must-keep player anymore, though. It's strange to say about Salah, the record-breaking point scorer in FPL history. We're thinking about selling him, but only just a tiny bit. Anyway, let's move on to Ismail Assar, and he put up a really good performance in the FA Cup, and if he can carry that form back into the Premier League against a Nottingham Forest team that are conceding a lot of chances at the moment, well, it's down to Sells really. Can Sells keep making incredible saves, or can the likes of the Crystal Palace boys kind of do something here? After that, Spurs away is the fixture in game week 36, which again could potentially be a double, but unlikely, and that's a really nice fixture for your Crystal Palace attackers as well. So there's definitely some argument to keep Ismail Assar despite some disappointing performances in the Premier League, though it has to be said he's only scored 8 less points than Mo Salah in the past 6 game weeks. Crazy, I know. After that, we've got Saka. Now, he's definitely a player you can consider selling. With the Champions League being the priority for Arsenal between now and the end of the season, it does seem that Saka is not necessarily a starting man right now, but into the future, there is a good chance that he is playing regularly in the Premier League. That is what he has always been in the past. He plays at the weekend, he plays in the midweek, and it's absolutely no problem. And particularly after game week 35 and game week 36, you would expect Saka to play every single game in the build-up to the Champions League final, of course, assuming Arsenal make it that far as well. So it's a difficult one. Saka is rotation risk right now, and he probably will be rotation risk against Liverpool as well. That's assuming you would even want to play him. But for the last 2 games of the season, home against Newcastle, away against Southampton, even if you think these fixtures are difficult, there are two difficult fixtures for the best players in world football, and I would certainly consider Saka among those ranks. And in his limited minutes, you can see his underlying numbers have very much reflected just how good he is as a player. Kluivert is going to be the final player here. It's going to be a nice hopping on point away against Arsenal, but with a potential double game week and Leicester at home in game week 38, there is some argument to keep him, but generally, if you do want to sell Kluivert, now would probably be a good time to do so. For ourselves, we have Alex Iwobi with these pretty weak underlying numbers here, and the fixtures don't look great either. Away fixtures against Aston Villa and Brentford, and difficult home fixtures against Everton and Man City here as well. Cole Palmer finds himself in the sell category as well. For the last couple of weeks, we have been maybe downplaying Palmer a little bit, but his form is just not good right now. And what we've seen more recently, particularly since the international break, is that Palmer's underlying data is also on the floor. So we've got bad fixtures coming up. The underlying data is not going up. It's going down, down, down each and every week. There are very few excuses I can make for Palmer anymore as an FPL asset, particularly at 10.6 million. He seems like a pretty obvious sell. And Marcus Rashford has picked up a hamstring injury, which could see him be out for the remainder of the season. I'm still waiting on confirmation on that one, but it's certainly looking like Fulham at home in game week 35 is kind of unlikely. So right now, Rashford looking like a sell. Of course, if we get some positive news that he is back in game week 35 or 36, he may be worth keeping. But if he is out for a minimum of 2 game weeks, which is pretty likely, and even if he is available, he probably will find himself on the bench. It's probably going to have to be a sell because of those reasons. Next up, defenders, and I'm struggling to think of a reason why you would sell the players like Saliba, Munoz, and Milenkovic. Now, fair enough, Saliba and Milenkovic don't have the perfect fixtures this week, and Munoz at home against Forest probably sounds pretty bad on paper, though Forest have been struggling to score a little bit over the past 6, 7, 8 game weeks. Even since Wood has been back, their attacking numbers are pretty poor. Can Munoz get a clean sheet here? Possibly, but you're looking at attacking returns from him as well. I think with Munoz, if you combine the attacking potential with the potential clean sheets, it's pretty decent for the next couple of weeks, to be fair, against Forest and Spurs. Saliba is an interesting one, but because he is nailed on for this top Arsenal defence, who are pretty fixture-proof from a defensive point of view, you could just keep him and play him. No strong reason to sell him. And Milenkovic here as well. Some people thinking about selling him, but actually I quite like the next 3 fixtures as a block for him against Palace, Leicester and West Ham. Particularly 36 and 37 could yield some clean sheet points for this Nottingham Forest team that always finds a way to those clean sheets somehow. Aït-Nouri is top of the monitor, and away fixture against Man City is tough, but if you can bench him for this week, I think it is worth holding on to him in your team. Kerkez, difficult fixtures over the next 3 game weeks, particularly from a defender, Arsenal, Aston Villa and Man City. It is a little bit of a struggle, but again, if you can bench him for 3 game weeks, maybe that's too much to ask, but if that is possible, maybe there is some argument to keep him. Virgil van Dijk has difficult fixtures in the next 2 game weeks, away against Chelsea, at home against Arsenal, and even Brighton and Crystal Palace after that. They're not exactly easy fixtures either, pretty tough. And Jurrien Timber could cause some issues with rotation. I'm sure he will cause a few headaches for the remainder of the season. So if you do like the look of a new defender this week, Timber is a player that could potentially be sacrificed if you are concerned about his minutes. Marc Cucurella is going to be a sell ahead of Liverpool and Newcastle for 5.4 million. It is a little tough run for him in the next 2 games, so would be potentially looking to remove him. Robinson, potential injury, away game against Aston Villa. Really, with Fulham defenders, the only fixture you're likely to play someone like Robinson is probably game week 36 at home against Everton. Is that enough? Maybe not, but I guess we said a similar thing about Kerkez, but the Robinson potential injury makes him a little bit more difficult to argue towards keeping. Pedro Porro, rotation risk and playing for an awful Spurs defense. We don't even need to look at the fixtures at this point. Let's move on. But before we do, if you are enjoying this video or finding it useful, make sure you do drop a like. It really helps out the channel so much, and do subscribe if you're new around here as well. We show you the stats and the fixtures every single game week in this series. Okay, let's look at the players to buy, and we see some familiar faces at the top of the buy section, kind of the same as the keep section for the previous part of the video. Marmoush and Wissa taking the 2 top spots with their great form, great fixtures for the remainder of the season. They're pretty much great set and forget kind of players, unless of course we do see Haaland come back a little earlier than expected. It may damage the appeal of Marmoush a little bit, though I have to say, even when Marmoush and Haaland were playing together, Marmoush looked really dangerous still. So it is more about the rotation risk than anything else, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But in 3rd place in the buy section, I'm going to put Ollie Watkins, and this is assuming that Rashford is going to be out for a minimum of 3 game weeks, and that is going to mean that Watkins is going to be much better as an option, nailed on for minutes. We know when Watkins is playing that he is a pretty reliable FPL asset and has been for the last couple of years. The fixtures look pretty good here for Aston Villa as well. Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Spurs at home, finishing off the season with Manchester United away. This is a pretty decent run for Aston Villa, and you could get involved in a much more nailed on forward than we saw previously in the season. Again, we've got similar players in the monitor section. Wood, Cunha and Mateta take up the exact same places here, ironically. And what is interesting is a lot of these players maybe look a little better for game week 36 onwards. So if you are looking for something new for game week 35, it could be that Marmoush, Wissa and Watkins look a little bit better, but I fully expect the likes of Wood and Cunha and even Mateta to come back into the conversation as buys from game week 36 onwards. You could, of course, just go 1 week early on these guys. No problem with that. That's why they're in the monitor section. There's different ways of looking at them. However, in the 4th spot in the monitor section, we do have Isak. And although I do think he is worth keeping for this Brighton game, the Chelsea and Arsenal and Everton games after that are not looking too good. And if he doesn't pick up the form, he's probably going to be a little disappointing in some of those games which have much lower upside compared to some of our other forward options. So if you were to buy Isak this week, you'd probably only be buying him for the Brighton game. And after that, you may even be looking at selling him again. So for that reason, I don't think he is a very strong buy. I don't really think I would consider buying him. But of course, if you have him already, you keep him for game week 35, no doubt about that. Avoid Strand Larsen for the same reasons we gave in the first section of the video, and we're also going to put 2 Everton forwards in the avoid section as well. There are no fixtures good enough, in my opinion, to bring in a Everton forward. They just struggle to score goals so much, and I really would trust the likes of Wood or Cunha against much tougher fixtures this week than Ndai and Beto against Ipswich at home. That's just the unfortunate situation with Everton right now. They are unreliable attackers, and Dye isn't even really a forward. He is a winger. Beto is not even nailed on. The only reason he played in game week 34 was because Broja was unavailable to play against parent club Chelsea. So Beto is rotation risk here as well. I don't think I would touch these Everton forwards with a 10-foot barge pole, even though their next 3 game weeks look pretty good. Look elsewhere. For midfielders, there are 2 players that are going to be at the top of everyone's shopping list in game week 35, and their names are Brian Mbeumo and Jared Bowen. So yeah, Bowen and Brian, 2 top players to go in for this week with fabulous form, fabulous fixtures as well. Lots of good positive reasons to go for these guys. However, I would definitely put Mbeumo ahead of Bowen in the priority list. If you can only buy one of these players, Mbeumo looks like the guy to go for. Even though Bowen has the superior fixture in game week 35, I think the next 3 game weeks maybe favour Mbeumo. We also see Mbeumo with superior underlying data, despite playing fewer games than Bowen over the past 6 game weeks, because of course Brentford and Forest still do need to play their game week 34 fixture later this week. So for that reason, Mbeumo is going to go ahead. Of course, we get penalties with Mbeumo as well, so that is why he is top of this list. But I don't want to discredit Bowen, because he is also a really nice fixture, a really nice player with really nice fixtures, and definitely a player that should be on our shopping lists as well. De Bruyne is also going to be in the buy section if you do want to play things a little bit differently. We've spoken about Man City having really nice fixtures as well, and we know De Bruyne is capable of a mega haul if you want to take a bit more of a risk here. What's great about De Bruyne is he was actually rested in the FA Cup semi-final. He didn't play a single minute. So going into this next group of fixtures, we expect him to play most games here in his final season for Man City to secure Man City a Champions League place. Man City cannot take their foot off the gas right now, and De Bruyne is going to be an essential player to ensure that they are in the Champions League next season. Eberechi Eze is also a potential buy here. Slightly better form than Ismail Assar. I say slightly, I mean much better form than Ismail Assar, and a potential penalty taker as well if he can improve his penalty taking skills a little bit. But with Mateta missing another penalty, it looks like Eze could be on the next one. Forest is the next fixture. We spoke about them being a weaker defense than perhaps the overlying data suggests. But yeah, I think Eze is a good pick for the next 3 game weeks if you want to go there. Morgan Rogers also looking pretty good right now. Nice fixtures, obviously decent form, seems nailed on. The underlying data is not necessarily there, and he has been massively overperforming, but hey, what's new with Morgan Rogers? Trossard is on here as a bit of a risky differential if you're looking to go a bit cheaper. He has been playing every game in the Premier League in recent game weeks, and 3 goals in the last 2 games is yeah, pretty nice indeed. So Trossard, 4 goals in the last 6 as well, with 1 sub appearance there. Overperforming, but he is taking a lot of shots, so at least we have got the shooting data to back up the goals that he is scoring. Bournemouth up next, a potential benching for you guys against Leicester, but at that price, he is easier to bench. And then Newcastle and Southampton for the final 2 games of the season. Provided Trossard is playing in those games, he looks like a nice pick, but there is a lot of risk there, and we do wonder about rotation. Maybe as each week goes by, his minutes become less secure. And Elanga is also in monitor. I do like these fixtures. I do like Elanga as a pick, generally speaking. I wonder if there is still some kind of injury, because he hasn't been playing full games recently, struggling really to play even a half of football. I don't know the reasons for that. Maybe Forest fans can help me out a little bit with understanding why that might be. But I think generally with these Forest midfielders, it is so difficult to pick out which one will be scoring the goals, which one will be getting the assists. Is it Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White? Who knows at this point, honestly? So Elanga is quite the risky pick, but at 5.4 million, maybe you do need a cheaper player, and he could be the solution to that. So despite everything we said about Luis Diaz being a player that you can't really sell because of his form, I think he's probably not a buy, given that we do have so many other midfielders with great fixtures who are in just as good form as him. So for that reason, Luis Diaz at a very similar price point to the likes of Brian Mbeumo, Jared Bowen. It seems that if you're going to pick between those 3 players, Luis Diaz is unfortunately just not going to make the cut. So unless you're buying all 3, you probably stick with Umbermo and Bowen for new buys. But I do want to reiterate, if you do already have Luis Diaz, he's not going to be a sell, really. It's very difficult to sell him right now. But if you're buying, we maybe look elsewhere. Jacob Murphy is also going to go in the avoid section for, again, the same reasons we spoke about Isak and Harvey Barnes. Nice fixture in game week 35, but after that, the fixtures are pretty toilet, so yeah, maybe not. And Saka, as discussed, he's just too rotation risk in the next game week or so to be worth buying right now for your FPL teams. We'll maybe have a closer look at him in game week 37 and game week 38 as a potential buy then, particularly game week 38 with the Southampton fixture. He could be a captain option by that point, but right now, he's going to be an avoid. Defenders are really difficult right now. I don't think too many people will be looking to make defensive transfers, given there are only 4 game weeks left of the season. And I've seen a lot of the defenders you guys already have are kind of absolutely fine to keep in your squad. But if I was to pick up a new defender this week, I'd probably be looking at the likes of Gavardio and Mykolenko, who both have a set of fixtures that do seem to favour defenders. Could be pretty nice for clean sheets here. So Gavardio playing Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth and Fulham, and Mykolenko playing Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton and Newcastle. Certainly for the next 3 weeks, really like the look of these Everton defenders. And at 4.3 million, Mykolenko's looking actually like a pretty nice pickup right now. The third buy, I've put Saliba in here, but honestly, it's because I'm struggling to figure out a third kind of defender to buy. I guess we could throw in like Ruben Dias of Manchester City here, potentially. There's not really any other Everton defenders I'd look to go for ahead of Mykolenko though, but let's deep that because Branthwaite is in the monitor section, and even though looking at him as an individual is a pretty solid FPL pick with these great fixtures for Everton, who are already a good defense, a solid defensive team. However, Mykolenko is 0.5 million cheaper, puts up better underlying numbers, has better bonus point potential. There doesn't seem to be a strong reason to go for Branthwaite ahead of Mykolenko, so that's the only reason he's in the monitor section. I guess if you're doubling up on the Everton defense, Branthwaite could be a consideration, but you could also go for O'Brien here potentially there as well. After that, we've got Alexander-Arnold. Not sure if I would pick him up for the next 2 fixtures. The fixtures for Liverpool, again, not super great, but obviously Trent is always a nice defender to have in your team, so 2 ways of looking at that. Sessegnon, probably not a player to pick up ahead of Aston Villa away, an in-form, great attacking team, not maybe the right timing for him. And Milenkovic, again, another player we could maybe wait 1 more week before picking up on him. Crystal Palace away is a tough fixture. This is a team that is scoring goals at the moment, is creating chances, and any team is going to struggle playing against Crystal Palace away from home at this present moment. And into the avoid section, we have our knee-jerk defenders. I guess people are picking up these guys because, well, they scored a lot of FPL points in game week 34. But Brighton away, Chelsea at home, and Arsenal away in the next 3 is far from an easy run of fixtures for a defender. And at 5.7 million, I don't think Trippier is worth the money. Dan Burn obviously scoring in game week 34 as well, but it's going to be more difficult to do so and indeed keep clean sheets in the next 3 fixtures. So I don't think I would buy any of the Newcastle defenders, but as we mentioned, again, with our Newcastle guys, they're not sells either. They are not players you need to sell ahead of Brighton, but they're not really going to be players we're going to be buying either. And finally, Ryan Aït-Nouri, as great as he is, you don't buy defenders ahead of Man City away, do you? Surely not. Of course, there's always the chance that Wolves could do the business over Man City, but with FPL, we've got to play those probabilities. We've got to play those chances, and I would say the chances of a Aït-Nouri haul to the same degree as game week 34 is maybe a little less likely against Man City away in game week 35, and for that reason, he's an avoid. Time for our goalkeepers, and if you have Raya and Sells, I would be looking to keep both of these guys for this game week and beyond in the case of Sells. Maybe Raya could be sold after that, but are we really making goalkeeper transfers at this time of the season? I guess if I had to sell a goalkeeper, it would be the likes of Alisson or Sanchez, because they do have these really tough fixtures coming up, and maybe there is better upside elsewhere. If you do need to buy a new goalkeeper for whatever reason, Pickford and Sells are probably top of the pops here. Great fixtures in the next 3 with some definite potential clean sheets coming up as well. Interestingly, both of these goalkeepers are making a lot of saves. 26 saves in 6 games for Pickford and 20 saves in 5 games for Sells. So it only needs a clean sheet, and we're looking at bonus points as well, probably, for these goalkeepers, particularly as they both play for pretty low scoring teams. The defenders often pick up the bonus points, and if the goalkeepers are making saves, even more reason for bonus points to go in their direction. And finally, avoid. Whilst I wouldn't sell Raya, I don't think I would buy him either. Same with Pope because of these tough fixtures coming up. So there you have it. Those are the goalkeepers, and that is every player I want to talk about in today's video. But if we did miss anyone out, if there is any player we didn't mention, let me know in the comment section and I will give them a rating: buy, sell, keep, or avoid. Keen to see if I've missed any big discussions on any big players for this game week. So do let me know. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here, and check out the Stick to FPL podcast for Game Week 35 as well. Link in the description. Check it out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you like. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.